Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to the episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, I've been playing the Poleaxe for probably more than 6 months or something now. I originally started off back in the closed beta with the glaive, was a big fan of that. Then I kind of transitioned into the longsword when it had kind of that better self-heal ability. And then I ended up trying out the Poleaxe, kind of enjoyed it, and really have just sort of stuck with it ever since. And I've never really done sort of a class guide on the Poleaxe, and this isn't really going to be it, but I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it as a class and kind of address a little bit to why this is kind of the class that I've mained for such a long time now and haven't really changed, because there's a couple of reasons sort of behind that. Obviously I really enjoy the Poleaxe. I think it has a really nice selection of abilities, and I like the fact it has one of the higher damage outputs out of all the classes. You know, we can actually have a look. I'm getting just close to 1800 in slashing damage, and well, 1900 in slashing armor penetration. So it means I can apply my damage very effectively. More so, you know, and I apply much more damage between this and my abilities than, say, a longsword or a short sword. Generally speaking, I think even than a glaive a little bit. And that means that it's quite effective against other heroes, I find. Because I can put that damage out really effectively. It makes it quite a good dueling class. And when you combine that with its decent amount of CC that you get in its skills, you know, I get a knockdown, which stuns. That doesn't stun. Well, it causes a little bit of stun, but not really a stun, and you can still roll out of it. But, you know, that does a ton of damage with my Bector Corbin. I've then got my Bill Hook, which pulls people down. So again, another stun. And then kind of the ultimate, the Rough Justice. This is probably the bit that people find to be most overpowered about the Poleaxe, and I probably actually agree. It's basically generally an unavoidable animation, which sort of hits and locks you in place, so it makes it very, very hard to avoid. And it's a fairly long duration ultimate, so you kind of get pinned to the floor for, you know, at least sort of 3 or 4 seconds, which is quite a long time in a combat situation. Particularly that gives me time to call my units over. That's why I tend to work well with javelins. I can throw javelins at you, and because you're stationary, they almost always hit. And kind of this combination of skills, the high damage output and the good amount of stun control makes it quite a nice class for me. I also like this because I think it makes it a lot easier for me to catch enemy ranged heroes. I think one of the biggest things I struggled with when I played the glaive and when I played the longsword was I had a hard time sort of really pinning down enemy ranged heroes, and they could just roll out the way and then continue to shoot me and throw bombs at me and other assorted sundry items. Whereas I find with the Poleaxe, I get the opportunity to lock them down a bit more because of that high damage output, and then being a light armor class, it applies the damage pretty nicely. So in terms of my specific loadout, I've put everything into armor. I'm a full armor build because I wanted to go for a full tank, and it means I just get just over 1000 in defensive stats. I really need to start to upgrade some of these pieces. I'm slowly working through them. I've been a bit reluctant to buy stuff off the market. You know, you can start to get legendary sets, but you can be sort of starting at around sort of 700,000 silver for a legendary, you know, body armor set, something like that. And I don't know, some of the stats on them I don't think are all that great, so I've kind of just been re-rolling them, reconditioning them every time they sort of run out. And I'm sure as and when things are slowly improving, you know, I'm picking and choosing the bits that I like the most. The one area I have got particularly lucky on my rolling when I might not initially peer it is my actual Poleaxe itself. I've got some really nice stats on this, I think. Mostly that slashing damage is pretty much maxed out. 268 is about the maximum bonus you're going to get on a Punisher class, and I got that plus 15 to agility as well, which is really quite nice. So that knocks up my slashing armor penetration, which is why it's so high, you know, and up towards that sort of 1900 level. And that's why, even though all my attribute points are in armor, I have 32 points in agility, because I'm getting plus 15 from my actual Poleaxe weapon itself. And I think it's also worth then talking about the Poleaxe is obviously a powerful class. I don't think it's necessarily overpowered. I think the ultimate maybe is kind of the area that it's starting to venture into it. I think the rest of the stuff's probably okay. You know, I like it because it's also very tanky, and it kind of works well with my fairly, let's say, rash playstyle. You know, I make quite a lot of mistakes, and the heavy armor allows me to kind of get away with that. Sometimes, you know, I get to roll out of situations where really I should be dying, because it enables me to do that. And I think that's something that works really well, and it works well with the videos as well, because it keeps me alive and enables me to keep functioning with my unit, particularly with the changes we've had now in Season 3, where, you know, you can no longer control your units very much after death as well. So, you know, survivability is becoming more and more important. So having a full armor build, having heavy armor is really quite critical. I think another reason that you see me having stuck with the Poleaxe for so long is that I'm actually not particularly very good at learning new things. if you look back at my early videos on Conqueror's Blade, you'll see I really struggled pretty terribly with it in general, and it took me a long time to learn the game. And considering I'm fairly regularly changing units to do new videos, I'm trying to level new stuff to get them ready for videos, etc. And I'm kind of chopping and changing my setup all the time. It's really nice to have one consistent element, and that consistent element for me is the Poleaxe. Because I know it, I've kind of got the muscle memory now for my skill abilities, I know when to use which ability. I know kind of how well I'll survive, I know my own strengths, and because I'm changing units all the time, it means that, I don't have to worry about the Poleaxe. If I'm having to learn a new class, say I switch to, say, the longbow, something fairly radically different, I'll have to spend the next month learning how to aim, because I'll suck at it at the start, and it'll take me a long time to learn that, because I'm pretty slow at learning things. So that's going to then make it very hard for me to then make unit videos, because I'm trying to learn a longbow at the same time. So for me, it kind of makes a lot of sense for me to stick with the Poleaxe, because I know it. I know the class really quite well, and I think it's a good class as well. So, it kind of works well in conjunction. Anyway, I've been waffling for far too long. I've just talked for 6 minutes about why I like the Poleaxe, which is ridiculous. Let's get into some footage and kind of see some of its abilities and talk through some of its abilities when we're actually in some combat. So for me, I think its survivability is one of its most critical features, and this is a feature that copies across to all heavy armour classes, but Poleaxe being a heavy armour class obviously is one of the features that gets this. It makes it a real tank, it enables me to survive and continue to command my units, even when I'm receiving, intense amounts of damage and I'm outnumbered in terms of enemy heroes and enemy units. So in this example, there's 2 enemy heroes, a unit of enemy spear sergeants, it's the heroic hero unit, as well as a full unit of archers shooting at me. And you'll see the damage starts to rack up, but I'm able to tank it long enough, and then able to stay alive to be able to continue to command my unit to get them onto the archers, which is what needed to be done. The archers get killed, I'm still alive, I'm still being shot at by the enemy bow hero. But it takes so much damage to actually kill me as a hero, it means I'm able to survive. Get the cannon down, and then thankfully friendly heroes turned up, give that extra support that we needed, and we managed to drive the enemies off that wall. But that just kind of shows how much damage I'm able to receive as a hero before I die. If I was, for me, a medium armour class in that sort of situation, then I think I would have died long before I'd been able to command my units and to get them to move on to those archers and to break through that shield wall. And whilst the class itself actually loses a little bit of manoeuvrability, it really is one of those classes that has one of the highest damage outputs. I'm able to lock this hero down here with my ultimate, and then I'm able to use sort of a string of my other abilities from my push to my Poleaxe to just easily out-damage him. And, my Bet Corbin does so much damage, it just really kills him quite quickly. Combined with that, I have a serious amount of knockdown. Look, we just managed to pull down, 10 enemy units there, and the enemy units that are attacking my units, and by causing that knockdown of them, it enables my units to continue to attack and do damage, whilst they can't because they're all on the floor. And that level of control is something that I think I like a lot in the Poleaxe. It gives me the ability to apply a high amount of damage and a high amount of stun to both enemy heroes and enemy units. And I think it's almost as useful against enemy units as it is against enemy heroes, because to be able to sort of stop charges, push back against charges, pull back against enemy units like that means I can apply quite a lot of damage and get on a lot better with my units. I think when you throw these two, survivability and a good amount of stun into the same situation, it enables you to get away with not necessarily bad gameplay, but in this case we're in a pretty overwhelming situation. I'm trying to protect our friendly muskets which are behind because I want them to continue to be able to apply the damage, but we're outnumbered, we've got multiple enemy heroes. I know I'm going to die, but I'm trying to keep them off the muskets. I'm able to get a lot of stun and knockdown against some of the enemy heroes, so they're not able to kill me, and it gives me time for allied support to turn up. I think a lighter class would struggle in that situation. I think that plays into my playstyle a lot, of just sort of throwing myself sometimes into these situations, sometimes for worse rather than better, but it enables me to buy time. And then once I'm back on my feet, I can go and start throwing my weight around, start getting that high damage potential in, help the team start pushing back even though my own unit is dead. And up until the point my health gets so low that I really did have to pull back to get myself healed up a little bit, otherwise I would have died. But that survivability, I was able to survive 2 units of Conqueror, or Conqueror, or however you call them, a couple of enemy heroes, and sort of by using that stun to target enemy heroes I can keep them on the floor, and I think that's just where the Poleaxe works really well. And even then I can use my damage and my hero abilities, even without a unit, to start to apply a little bit of damage before I pull back to the supply point and go and get a fresh unit. So I think, all things considered, that really sums up the bulk of my opinion on the Poleaxe. good survivability, very good amount of stun, and a pretty decent amount of damage. And I think that sort of all-roundness, particularly the survivability, really sort of plays well into my playstyle, helps me keep me alive when I make stupid decisions, and that's really what makes it the class for me. You know, I think some people prefer the really high damage output of the spear, but it's a lot more fragile, and I think that works really great if you're good enough to do that, but for me, I just get myself killed all the time. So I think that's why this sort of really plays into my strengths of the class. And I think it's certainly it's a good class in the game. I think it's one of the more decent classes. And yeah, I think it's overall a really nice class to use. And I think it works well in conjunction with the units. And yeah, that's really pretty much my opinion on the Poleaxe. We're certainly going to be checking out the Maul very shortly. I've just about got that unlocked now on the Battle Pass, so we're going to be spending a little bit of time learning how that goes, and then we'll be diving into that as a class. This is going to be my first class change for quite a long time, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how that's going to play out, but hopefully it should at least have the survivability of my Poleaxe, because it's going to be a heavy weapon class, and I'm certainly going to be keeping that with the full armor tank. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video and this overview. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.